statements and military operations generally align with the idea of targeting specifically Hamas.
Israeli president says that there are no innocent civilians in Gaza, as northern Gaza struggles to flee Israeli bombs. The Israeli president said, "It is not true. This rhetoric about civilians not being aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true. They could have risen up. They could have fought against the evil regime that took over Gaza." The Israeli president said, "It is an entire nation out there that is responsible." He flat out said that he is holding the Palestinian people responsible for the actions of Hamas, which is even more disgusting when you realize that the Israeli prime minister admitted to funding Hamas. The Israeli government is holding the Palestinian people responsible for the actions of Hamas, a group that the Israeli government has been funding since the 80s. You are defending genocide.
A German politician describing the Holocaust as a tragedy is Holocaust revisionism. It's a denial of responsibility for carrying out that crime. A tragedy is a terrible but unavoidable event for which no one is really responsible. The Holocaust, however, was the most ambitious act of deliberate mass murder in history, the extermination of most of Europe's Jews by Nazi Germany. That's not a tragedy, it's a genocide, a crime against humanity. German politicians are the leading Zionists in Europe today. From right to left, Germany's political class back Israel through thick and thin. In return, the Israeli state is expected to help the German establishment to leave its Holocaust guilt in the past. But the Holocaust can't be shrugged off like this, and Israel's crimes against Palestinians cannot and will not be ignored.
75 years of dynamism, ingenuity, and groundbreaking innovations. You have literally made the desert bloom.
Israel did not make the desert bloom. The very phrase "make the desert bloom" is an infamous Zionist lie, which denies the prior existence of Palestinians in their own homeland.
I want you to do something. I want you to grab that screenshot. This is Christopher Rufo. He is the one who created the CRT panic, connecting critical race theory to everything that conservatives disliked about schools. And now he's doing it again. He says it out loud because these folks are too dumb to read between the lines. These are talking points that I guarantee you are going to hear leveled against college professors and upper-level high school teachers. Conservatives need to create a strong association between BLM, DSA, and academic decolonization in the public mind. Connect the dots, then attack, delegitimize, and discredit. Make the center-left disavow them, make them political untouchables. I'm telling you this because he did it before. We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perception. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all the various cultural insanities under that brand category. And that's from March of 21.
ما فيش عندي دار ولا عندي محل الدار والمحل واحد
is criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli intelligence. Trump, speaking to supporters in Florida, recalled an incident involving Israel's role in a 2020 U.S. drone strike. He said Prime Minister Netanyahu pulled out of the plan to kill Iran's top security and intelligence commander.
When I see sometimes the intelligence, you talk about the intelligence or you talk about some of the things that went wrong over the last week, they've got to straighten it out because they're fighting potentially a very big force. I did have a bad experience with Israel, though. When we took out Soleimani, it was us and Israel working as a group. And the night before it happened, I got a call that Israel will not be participating in this attack. I'll never forget that Bibi Netanyahu let us down. That was a very terrible thing. I will say that.
Reported in 2021 that Donald Trump was very unhappy with Netanyahu because Netanyahu was one of the first people to congratulate President Biden on his win in the November election. And so I think that that is actually what is most significant in driving Trump's beef with Netanyahu.
You know, Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart. The press doesn't like when they say it.
Very smart. From the White House just put this out. A spokesperson on these statements says, "We don't comment on 2024. Statements like this are dangerous and unhinged. It's completely lost on us why any American would ever praise an Iran-backed terrorist organization as smart or have any objection to the United States warning terrorists not to attack Israel, especially now as Israel is fighting back against one of the worst acts of mass murder in the country's history."
You know, there used to be an idea that was elevated by Republicans that partisanship ought to end at the water's edge. That's particularly true in a time of crisis like this with an ally. The fact that Donald Trump didn't have the decent...
يعني يا اخوي انت مزجت شو انت حامله؟ طب ايش بدي اعمل؟ وين اوديه يعني؟ ابن هذا هو ناجي من والده ووالدته عايشين؟ لا الله يرحمه توفى. هو الوحيد اللي ضايع. شو اسمه؟ حمزة ملك.
I completely reject this framework that you're never allowed to draw similarities, see commonalities between the suffering of the Jews, between the Holocaust and any other genocides in history. That framework just promotes ignorance. It prevents people from seeing the connections between genocides as they've occurred in different parts of the world. And that while the foot soldiers of genocide are often fueled by hate, the architects of genocide, it's always about land, power, and wealth. Growing up, I was steeped in Holocaust stories. I mean, my family, we had a couple of Kerns escaped to the US, and all of the rest of my grandmother's and grandfather's people in Vilna and in Kiev were murdered, as far as we know. They did not survive the Holocaust. At Passover every year, we were reminded of our suffering. You know, on Holocaust Remembrance Day, we were reminded of our suffering. I read every single book about the Holocaust I could get my hands on as a kid until I gave myself nightmares. And so Jews, by the time they're adolescents, a lot of us have like a PhD level knowledge of the Holocaust. But speaking for myself, I was woefully ignorant about other genocides that have occurred all over the world, including here in the United States. And that gives you a really skewed vision of the world. One, I truly believed that the suffering of the Jews was really unique and special. There was something about Jews that people just hated more than anyone else in the world. And when you read story after story after story of the Jews as victims and as, everyone else as our oppressors, you start to see the world that way, and it filters everything that you see so that it becomes very hard to see it when Jews, even with machine guns and tanks and nuclear weapons, are, visibly oppressing a people for 75 years. It becomes very hard to see Jews as anything other than victims if those are the only stories you've consumed from the time you were very small. And so, once again, this is a book talk channel. I think it's really important for Jews to learn about other genocides besides the Holocaust. I know it was really important for me. And you will start to see commonalities. You will start to see how more than the hate, genocides are about land and power and wealth. The hate is a justification for seizing land and wealth and solidifying the power of the people who are doing the genocide. The hate is manufactured by people in power, and it can be manufactured about anybody, not just Jews. So here are some absolutely fucking brutal books about genocide that I think other Jews should read. We were not the only people being genocided, living in exile, being massacred in Europe throughout the medieval and early modern period. The Roma, I contend, had it even worse than Jews because Jews had wealth through trade networks connecting them to the Levant, which gave them some degree of security. The Roma did not have that. And Jews have been complicit in erasing the Roma from our own history books, our histories of the Shoah and our histories of, persecution of Jews in Europe before that.
So I want you to read The Roma, The History of the Romani People and the Controversial Persecutions of Them Across Europe by Charles Rivers, editors. This is a very slim book, but it's absolutely brutal to get through, and it's important for everyone to read. It is especially important for USian Jews to understand the scope of the horrors of the genocide committed against Native people here in the United States. And I know you think you know, but no, whatever you got in your schooling, if you haven't gone out and read about this, you really don't know the depth of the horrors of that genocide. So I want you to go read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, An Indian History of the American West by Dee Brown. It is absolutely horrific to go through, but it is important to bear witness to that. A lot of Jews think that, hey, 6 million dead in the Holocaust, that is the most number of people of any ethnic group to be targeted in a single genocide. But that's just not true. Under King Leopold in the Congo, somewhere between 8 and 10 million Africans were genocided through slave labor camps. So to learn about that, you can read King Leopold's Ghost, A Story of Greed, Terror, and Heroism in Colonial Africa by Adam Hochschild. It is important to realize that genocide did not end with the Holocaust. It is ongoing throughout the world. A more recent one from the 1990s was the genocide that occurred in Rwanda. To read about that, you can read We Wish to Inform You That Tomorrow We Will Be Killed with Our Families, Stories from Rwanda by Philip Gurovich. And finally, most importantly, go read The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pappé. I've been encouraging you to read Palestinian authors on this channel, but I know for some of you, you're not ready for that. Well, Ilan Pappé is an Israeli Jew. He, like me, feels that his Jewishness calls him to call out genocide when he sees it, and he sees it in Israel against Palestinians. It is not fun to read these books. It is brutal. It is traumatic. It will give you nightmares, but it is so important. And it is so important that we feel free to draw similarities and see connections between different genocides in different parts of the world and different periods of history, because how else are we going to stop them? So I call bullshit on anyone who tells you something like this. Learn about other genocides. Draw the similarities, make the comparisons so that you can become more educated and see the world more clearly and have a better understanding of history, which is informing everything that's happening right now in Palestine. And if you have not done it already, go to jvp.org. Use the first button that pops up, their tool, to call your representatives and tell them to stop funding genocide in Palestine. Do it every day until the people of Gaza are safe.
What? Oh, that's nothing. That's just the Israeli finance minister Bezalel Smotrich admitting that he's a fascist homophobe. No big deal. Anyway, what'd you think about the football game? What, this? This is nothing. This is just the Israeli president, Isaac Herzog, admitting that the official strategic policy of the Israeli Defense Forces is to implement genocide in the Gaza Strip. I'm really thinking about getting the new iPhone. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu admitting that he funds Hamas? No. Come on, that's not important. I'm gonna go see Barbie this weekend. No, Israeli Defense Forces definitely don't use a violent offensive tactic against Gazans known as mowing the grass. No, the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security never likened Gaza to its front lawn, which needed to be mowed, nor did they compare Palestinian civilians to weeds growing wild and snakes slithering around in the brush. Neither is it true that Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant compared Palestinians to human animals, as he announced his plan to implement a hermetic siege on Gaza, which is a war crime. Everything's fine.
Bibi is a murderer. That's what the people behind me are chanting. Bibi is a murderer. So high here that people are blaming Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for getting into this mess, for thinking about his own political situation.
Where are you from?
I'm from Israel.
Are you a IDF soldier?
Yes, I am.
Didn't the IDF, they bombed Gaza and they
Yeah, of course.
and they They killed hundreds of children?
I don't know about it, okay? I just know that we bombed them because they bombed us, okay? And
What about before that? Why did they bomb you guys?
I don't know why, okay? Maybe something like a lot of years ago, but...
You don't know the information? Before Israel, 1948, it was Palestine.
Yeah.
No, it's called Israel.
No, it was called Palestine before 1948.
Maybe it is.
And it still is. Right now, it's occupied Palestine, yes.
Yeah.
I wish IDF more children, okay? And I wish the IDF will find you and kill you, okay?
Why?
Okay.
No, I don't know.
It's only Israel, no Palestine. And if you talk it like again, I will f*** you in your okay? Motherfucker.
Wait, does he kill innocent Palestinians?
I kill every Palestinian you see.
So every Palestinian you see, you kill?
Every Palestinian you see, I just...
موطني
ما انت مدافع رجعني بشدور از ما انت بشدور ما انت مدافع انا بشدور ما انت مدافع ما מעניין אותי אם אתה בשידור
מדווח מה אומר דובר צה"ל.
מה אומר דובר צה"ל? מקווה מאוד שאתם אומרים דברים טובים, הבנת אותי? מקווה מאוד שאתם אומרים דברים טובים וכל החמאס האלה צריכים לשחוט אותם, הבנת אותי?
عناصر من الشرطة الإسرائيلية يحاولون أو يراقبون ما الذي نتحدث وخرج مرة واحدة للصراخ بهذه الطريقة وللتهديد بطبيعة الحال.
تهديد جديد للطواقم الصحفية كما نرى على الشاشة. عنصر من الشرطة الإسرائيلية يتدخل أثناء مشاركة زميلنا أحمد راوشة معنا.
Joe clearly likes to play up in our face. You can't be serious, Joe. You honestly cannot be serious with this. Now, I know people like to pretend that, the Israeli military pulled out of Gaza decades ago and, Gazans are free. They have their own government. No, they don't. They're still very much under Israeli control. You just had a conversation with the Israeli government, pleading with them to restore basic amenities to Palestinian people in Gaza. And the fact that people around the world, not just in the United States, around the world, believe that the Israeli government is still not occupying Gaza. The Israeli government controls movement, resources, things that, you would be controlling if you actually were free and you weren't under an illegal military occupation. Israel controls all of those things, because, Gazans, they're free and they're not under an illegal military blockade and occupation. We're not even going to talk about the fact that the land that the Palestinians are occupying is getting smaller by the year. Illegal settlements, illegal, meaning in violation of international law, settlements being built in Palestinian-controlled areas, pushing Palestinians into smaller and smaller military-controlled areas, because they're under a military blockade, which in itself is an occupation. Palestinians cannot even fly into their airport, and the Israeli government won't even allow them to rebuild the airport. And you don't think that that's a occupation, Joe? This is the reason why we need age limits on every single thing in this country. The problem with a lot of the situations in this country, and the reason why there isn't the necessary change that's being facilitated in our government when it comes to basic things like, respect for international law and human decency as a universal principle, is due to the fact that we have too many old motherfuckers that don't want to change shit, that need to retire. Joe's one of those. I know a lot of y'all love this man because you love his pettiness. Y'all love the dark Brandon humor or whatever you want to call it. But this is one of those situations where you have to see things for what they are. And he clearly does not want to budge even a little bit on this. He doesn't want to move. He doesn't see anything wrong with what the Israeli government is doing to the Palestinian people. And he has done nothing but reaffirm that support over and over again. Now, I know you will get those people that will say, well, what's the alternative, Trump? Stop that dumb shit. Just stop it. Right now. All the way, stop it fucking right now. Because there are people that no matter who, Democrat or Republican, is in office, it's a life and death situation for them. So if Democrats are going to pretend to be this party that values respect for international law and human decency, they need to put candidates up that value that every fucking time. And that is not up for fucking debate.
This is some proof that you are still brainwashed, even if the truth is out there. The CNN reporter apologized for spreading false news about the slaughter of Israeli children, which is unfortunately too late to do so. This lady right here, she's not an Arab, but she said that she will never believe any word in the UK newspaper. It was all lies.
I know that I'm very dubious about it anyway, but this has literally just sealed the deal. So I can tell you now, I know for a fact 100% that Hamas did not behead any babies. I can tell you that categorically now, and I challenge anyone to show me any evidence.
3. Meta is doing an update on all of the applications. Now, why now? To block any news about Palestine and boost any news about Israel. Ross said in his story that his DMs was jam-packed with fake AI and Photoshop, pictures and videos, and now he's trying to search for the history behind what's happening. And in his searching journey, he's seeing different news. People in Israel saying that they are the victims, yet he's seeing what's happening in Palestine. Israel is calling out their influencers on a full operational PR campaign. Just go out there wearing some full nice outfit with full makeup, stating that their country is at war. We're not dumb. Your influencers are exposing you. We're not dumb. The Israeli government have publicly declared their intentions to commit a war crime against the Palestinians, openly saying that they will starve them food, water, electricity, fuel. There's no hospital beds right now, and evacuating them. They are indirectly doing a conflict between the Arabs because they saw and they knew that Arabs know how to unite. They are so afraid of us to the extent that they programmed Alexa to say false allegations. Watch this.
Hey Alexa, what's happening in Palestine?
I'm sorry, I can't play topics like this for kids.
Now listen. Hey Alexa, what's happening in Israel?
On October 11, 2023, according to the Associated Press, the Israeli military said Wednesday night that hostile aircraft had entered the country from Lebanon. The news came after Hezbollah fired anti-tank missiles at an Israeli military position earlier Wednesday, claiming to have killed and wounded troops. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
The bad news is Gaza is still not safe. People are still dying. 6,000 bombs or more in the past 6 days. Israel tricked Palestinians to evacuate them from a certain road so they can bomb this road. They bombed a truck full of Palestinians trying to evacuate. They also did a new massacre in another city. People who were fleeing in Gaza thought that they would be safe, but they're not. Gaza started putting the dead people in ice cream trucks because they don't have space, and so they can keep them cold until they give them to their family or bury them if their families are still alive. Gaza's largest hospital is running out of fuel. This morning, a family of 4 children with their mother killed by an Israeli airstrike. Nearly more than 700 children were killed in the past 7 days. That means nearly more than 100 children per day, and in the upcoming few days they will lose their access to petrol. Again, these are the accounts you need to follow. There are journalists shooting live videos, risking their own lives to show the world what is happening. Follow them, see what's happening.
This 71-year-old landlord is accused of murdering this 8-year-old Palestinian and critically wounding his mother. Joseph M. Zuba is being charged with first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, 2 counts of a hate crime, and aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. This poor child was wounded 26 times. Can I help but wonder how the media rhetoric contributed to this murder? And I wonder what news networks that this man watched. I wonder what social media influencers he was exposed to in the weeks leading up to this. Here's a little bit more information.
71-year-old man is in custody tonight, accused of stabbing an 8-year-old boy to death and seriously injuring a 32-year-old woman. The Will County Sheriff's Office says a call came in around 11:30 this morning with a woman pleading for help. She says she was fighting off her landlord who had a knife. Sheriff's Office says the 71-year-old man from Plainfield was sitting upright near the driveway of that home when they arrived. He had a cut on his forehead. He was taken to a nearby hospital for treatment before officers took him into custody.
Are you going to condemn them for cutting off food, water, and electricity to Gaza? Another war crime called collective punishment. Did it ever cross your mind to condemn Israel when they assassinated Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh in broad daylight, or when they brutalized the people carrying her coffin peacefully, or when Israeli snipers killed innocent peaceful protesters throughout the March of Return? Did the people in office before you ever consider condemning Israel at any point? since its inception, when it crams a country full of people into a 60-mile corner of their own country, creating the largest concentration camp in history, the largest open-air prison in the world? The answer is a resounding no. You never considered it, nor did your ancestors. But unfortunately for you, times have changed. The world is increasingly aware of the crimes of Israel and increasingly aware of the framework of politicians who enable their continued apartheid by resolutions such as these. And in a city like Chicago, with majority black and brown people who have experienced the apartheid-like conditions of oppression in the United States, a generation of young people have emerged who understand immediately that we have everything in common with the Palestinian people and nothing in common with the brutal Zionists under who they suffer. A generation of people who are not surprised when we find out that our politicians, up to our president, spread lies about 40 babies being beheaded in order to rationalize genocide. We're only surprised that they're forced to walk those lies back. But of course, the damage is done. People are still spewing the debunked lies about rape and massacre of babies, even here in this very meeting, when actually there is endless evidence of Israel having killed over 500 babies in the last 48 hours alone, having dropped more bombs in 24 hours than the U.S. dropped on Afghanistan in 1 year. And finally, let it be known that condemning the attack as the actions of some fringe group misses the point of what's going on. The attacks were carried out by a broad coalition of groups from every section of Palestinian society, not just Hamas. That coalition represents a people determined to attain freedom at any cost, and they have arrived at this point in the face of a broad coalition of right-wing Zionists and their supporters like those in the city council who would start a meeting with a prayer calling for their attempt at freedom, a second Holocaust, where are so silent you could hear a rat piss on cotton when innocent, peaceful Palestinians are annihilated day in and day out like the Native Americans of this country. If it were another time, these same people would be condemning Africans for rebelling against their slave masters during slavery, such as Nat Turner or in the Haitian Revolution. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Some years ago, in the place where you're sitting, some Zionists came here. Two. One was very strong, and the other one was like the intellectual of both of them. And they come here and overwhelm me, and they treat me with electric shocks and injections, which break my bones, what make me very sick after it. Until today I'm suffering. The Dutch authorities recognize me as a victim of violence. I got even some compensations from the Dutch authorities. Today I'm officially recognized as an invalid. I can walk, but as you know, I have a wheelchair, and I have very much difficulties with my health.
Unbelievable. When was that?
It was in the date 8 March 2000.
Have you been warned before or something?
Yes, they call me and they say that I have to close my mouth. They want to hide some proofs about harmonious life before the establishment of the Zionist state. They want to show that the state is necessary. They don't want to hear that Jews used to live peacefully with Muslims, and the relations were perfect. And this is what I'm saying to the world constantly. I'm Palestinian Jew. We have no feeling of animosity with the Muslims over there. We have friends who are Muslims, and we can cooperate and do with each other very nice. When I compare to relations around the world, the relations that we have with the Muslims in Palestine, my father, my mother, were very good. There was no reason to talk so bad about them, and for sure not to do so bad.